Right. And this is the Rotary E-Club of District 7710, and I'll pass it back to you, Eve, for the introduction.
Great, thank you, Jan. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and colleague, sister volunteer. I've gotten to know her over the past few years, working with Sister Cities as well, and I'm actually really excited to introduce her tonight, and I think this is going to be an interesting conversation. Gwendolyn Bookman is an attorney and has worked in a variety of responsible positions in higher education administration for over 40 years. In addition to her Juris Doctor degree, Bookman completed postgraduate study at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in International Economics, Law, and Politics. At Bennett College, she is an associate professor and interim chair of the Department of Political Science and Sociology, where she teaches law and globally focused courses. She designed and teaches Introduction to Global Studies, a core course for the minor in Global Studies, Comparative Political Systems, and International Organization and Law. In summer 2012, Bookman was a program evaluator for the Virginia Tech China program in Guangxi Province, and in summer 2011, she participated in a Fulbright Hays seminar abroad in Morocco and Tunisia, studying Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Arabic. In summer 2016, she participated in the UNCF Mellon International Faculty Seminar in Paris, France. Since 2003, she has volunteered with Sister Cities of Durham and currently serves as president of the board and chair of the New Cities Committee. She previously served as co-chair of the Arusha, Tanzania Committee. Bookman has traveled extensively and has a passion for global education. Her travels and studies include Austria, Benin, Cote d'Ivoire, Cuba, France, Ghana, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Saint Martin, Senegal, South Africa, Spain, Tanzania, Togo, and Zanzibar. Her writings and conference presentations focus on enhancing global opportunities for faculty, staff, and students. Her most recent article on collaborative global citizenship initiatives at Bennett College appears in Network, a journal of faculty development. Excerpts from presentations at the New York University Faculty Resource Network Fall 2015 National Symposium. And with that, I'd like to welcome Gwen Bookman.
Thank you so much, Steve. Eve, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to extend my humble thanks to Eve and to the E-Rotary for inviting me to speak with you. Our organizations have such synergy, and we on the Sister Cities board are very, very grateful for the support that we have gotten from your club. And most recently, before I became the president of Sister Cities board, I was a very active member of the Arusha committee, and I know how central your support has been to helping us achieve some of the projects that we have undertaken there, specifically the project that was looking at providing safe and clean water for one of the girls' schools in Arusha. So I'm very pleased to be here, and I look forward to talking with you a bit about the Sister Cities of Durham, and especially the process of establishing Sister Cities relationships. I am currently not only the president of the board of Sister Cities, I'm also the chair of the New Cities Committee, and had the pleasure of bringing on the first new city for the city of Durham in many years. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we get further on in the slides as you look at the cities that we currently are affiliated with. I want to start the presentation by the next slide. Eve, which actually gives some definitions for you about what Sister Cities are really about. But before I do that, I want to set a little bit of a prelude by telling you what you may already know, and that is that the Sister Cities organization was actually started by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956. So Sister Cities International, our home body, which is located in Washington, D.C., is very pleased to be celebrating our 60th anniversary this year. And Sister Cities is a nonpartisan 501c3 organization which serves as the national membership organization for the individual sister cities programs across the United States. This network utilizes tens of thousands of what we call citizen diplomats and volunteers in over 570 member communities and over 2,300 partnerships in 150 countries on 6 continents. So we start with what is a sister city. A sister city relationship is a broad-based, long-term partnership between 2 countries, 2 communities in 2 countries. It is officially recognized after the highest elected or appointed officials from both of these communities sign an agreement. So the point here is that while it is operated by citizens who are basically volunteers, it is an officially recognized collaboration between the officials of the 2 communities that are in partnership. It is a wonderful relationship because it offers flexibility for these 2 communities to form connections that are mutually beneficial and which address some of the issues that are most relevant to the 2 partner countries that enter into this partnership. I should say to you that there are many sister cities that are partners with more than 1 city. For example, we are very interested, and we'll talk about this again a little bit later, we're very interested in beginning a Hispanic sister city relationship in Durham because of the large population of Hispanic people who we have in our community. We have identified the potential of partnering with Antigua, Guatemala, but Antigua is already in partnership with a Florida city, but there is no prohibition that we could not also start a relationship with that city if we determined that there were beneficial possibilities for our partnership. What they do in the home office of Sister Cities International is that one of those cities, the one that is the first partnership, is given a designation as a founder organization, and then the other city is free to go on and establish that relationship. That's a relatively new undertaking for Sister Cities International because there used to be a prohibition to having a relationship with a city that had already established a sister city relationship. Let's look at the next slide, Eve, which talks about the sister city organization itself. As I indicated before, the whole premise of Sister Cities is to start citizen diplomacy. So the Sister City organization is really a volunteer group, ordinary citizens like you and I, who come together in support of local officials to form this, what we expect to be a long-term relationship with people and organizations in a city abroad. The city organizations are independent. They are free to pursue whatever activities that are important to them and to the community that they are part of, as well as the sister city organization that they are attempting to establish the relationship with abroad. The whole premise and the underlying mission of all of the sister cities organizations is basically to promote peace through people-to-people relationships. Next slide. Durham currently has 5 sister city relationships and 1 friendship city relationship. The difference between a sister city relationship and a friendship city relationship is relatively minor on some level. They both involve citizen diplomacy and they both involve activities that take part both in the city here in the United States and the city abroad. The difference, however, is that there is a little bit more formality associated with the establishment of a sister city relationship. Actually, they often take place through a signing by the mayors of both cities in a very what shall I call it, official and formal signing ceremony. The same thing often happens with the Friendship City relationship as well. So the very first city that Durham established a relationship with, according to the chart that you can see, was in Durham, UK, and that began in 1975. It's really interesting because my understanding is that even though the Durham, UK relationship began with Durham, North Carolina in 1975, it wasn't a very active relationship until travelers from Durham very fortuitously ended up in Durham, UK, talking with one of the persons in the know there, and it was through that process that we came to learn that there had been a formal relationship established. So the persons came back to Durham, North Carolina, did a little bit of research, and actually put into activation a relationship that had officially started many years before. And as you can see, the very next city to come on board in Durham was TOYAMA, Japan, which came on board in 1989, which is 14 years later. Even though the official relationship for Durham, UK began in 1975, it is my understanding that it was not until the late 1980s that that relationship became very vibrant and alive as it is today. You'll also see that in 1989, Durham also brought on a relationship as a sister city with Kostroma, Russia. And I think you can imagine that during that time, there was a lot of attention to the Cold War and what might be a way to have people in Durham and people in Russia really get to know each other and to break down some of those barriers that were so alive during the time that we were in that Cold War experience with Russia. Arusha, Tanzania came on board in 1991. I don't know the actual story of how that came about, but as always happens with the sister city relationships, and we'll again talk about this a little bit further as we move through the slides, it really comes about through someone in the city in Durham having an interest in reaching out to a city abroad. And it is through that initial interest that the process is set in motion. And I will give you a little bit more detail about the formality of how that gets done as we move through. The Suzhou China connection, which started in 2012, I am most familiar with because it is that city that I worked with as the chair of the New Cities Committee to actually bring into fruition. So it is through that process that I really have a firsthand experience with going from an initial interest in a group of citizens in Durham all the way through the formal process of getting all of the documents in place and crossing all of the T's and dotting all of the I's to get that city on board. While I take real pride as the chair of the New Cities Committee to bring on board the first new city for Durham in many years, I won't take full credit for it because there was already a very, very active group of Durham citizens who wanted to see this China relationship begin. And therefore, while I brought it on more formally and put it into official operation, there were many things that had already been done to bring this about. I should say, as an aside, there's a very active China Council located in Raleigh, and that council was very instrumental in bringing this new city on, and we have continued to stay in relationship with the China Council and to make sure that many of the activities that have come about as a result of that sister city relationship have been supported and underwritten by the China Council in Raleigh. As an aside, although I don't know the specifics of it, I would also tell you that China is a very natural relationship for North Carolina because China is one of the major trading partners, and there have been, although I have not been actually a part of it, there have been trade missions that have been undertaken by our Secretary of Commerce and with the governor to China, really solidifying how North Carolina is in relationship with China. The last city on this list that I want to talk to you a little bit about is Kunshan, China. Kunshan, as some of you may know, is the location of one of the sites for Duke University, and therefore it was a natural for Durham to begin a friendship relationship with Kunshan. And the reason that's so important is it speaks to how sister cities really tries to further many of the connections that are already going on in our locale, so that we are serving as a support for many initiatives that are already underway. And so our relationship with Kunshan really grew out of the fact that that is where Duke University actually has a fully up and operating campus. Next slide. The picture here is really wonderful. I thank Eve so much for helping me put these slides together. I am rather technology challenged, and I don't make any apologies for saying such. Eve was so gracious to help me put this in some more attractive order than I had structured. And this sign is in our city park in Durham. And as you see on there, it's a testament to Durham sister cities, and it lists the mileage from Durham of each of the sister cities and the friendship city that we are affiliated with. So as you can see, our furthest city is Kunshan, China, Suzhou, China, and the next one is also in China, followed by Toyama, Japan, followed by Arusha, Tanzania, then Toyama, Japan, and the closest one to us is Durham, England. Next slide, please. How is a sister city relationship formed? I've already given you, I think, a good idea that the establishment of a sister city grows really out of the citizen diplomats in the U.S. city who are interested in establishing a relationship with a city abroad. So we start first and foremost with a group of citizens in Durham, and I'll speak specifically about Durham, a group of citizens in Durham who, for whatever reason, have identified a city abroad that they'd like to be affiliated with. While it begins and has to be sustained by the activities of the citizen diplomats in the U.S. city, this exploration is not done without quite a bit of support and quite a bit of guidance from other cities in terms of things that might be helpful to get the relationship started and potentially to also keep it alive and well. So I start with number one, the assistance that any interested body of citizens can get from Sister Cities International. And one of the examples that we have as part of the presentation is the newsletter that is published by Sister Cities International that really is about cities seeking cities. They operate very actively through a committee to assist any city in the U.S. interested in exploring a relationship, find those cities. And there is a newsletter, which you'll see later on in the slides, which really gives you a lot of information on cities abroad that are looking for other cities, giving you a little bit of a synopsis of what that city is about and helping you explore what cities are already out there looking. And the reason that's important is these relationships can only occur if the interest is on both sides of the water. If we in Durham are interested in a relationship with a city and that city is not interested in the relationship with us, it goes nowhere. I will use as an example, when I came on board as the chair of the New Cities Committee, not only was Durham in conversation about bringing on the China city, we were also in conversation about bringing on a French city. And quite a bit of interest had been expressed about that. It turns out, however, that the city that Durham was interested in France, really had an interest in partnership with another city because they were trying to partner with a city that they already had established some relationship with. So even though that was very disappointing for the group of citizens in Durham who had started their conversation about the French relationship, this can only happen if the desire to make the partnership work exists on both sides. Number 2 on the slide is an informal exploratory outreach to a prospective city. And the example that we have appended to the slides is a letter that we wrote to the mayor of Antigua to at least get some idea before we move too far along in our process whether Antigua, Guatemala, had any interest in connecting with Durham, North Carolina. This is still a work in progress. We haven't quite yet finalized any relationship nor moved to a formal application process to bring on Antigua as a sister city for Durham, but this letter gives you an idea of the type of approach that might be made to a prospective city before too much investment has been made by a committee to see if that relationship has any possibility of moving forward. One of the reasons this Antigua outreach has been so important to Durham is, once again, talking about the interests of the U.S. City community. Durham has a very high population of citizens from Hispanic areas. We are committed to making sure that we bring on sister cities that are representative of the citizens in Durham. So we have been working probably for the last 2 or 3 years trying to make sure that we aggressively approach various groups in Durham to see if we can get together enough interest to really bring a Hispanic city on board. The other interest that we are pursuing, and those of you who have worked with Rotary may know that we will be working very closely with some of your former Rotary leadership to see about pursuing a relationship in a city with a city in India, because there's also quite a bit of interest in doing that, because there's also a large population of our citizens in Durham who come from India. The last thing on this slide in terms of how sister city relationships are formed is a process very specific to Durham, and it is the form that we use through our New Cities Committee to review and approve any group of citizens who have moved to the formal stage of wanting to make a formal proposal that a new city be brought on board. So Eve, would you move through the next slides and let's see what we have that we can look at. This slide that's on your screen now is an example of the City Cities International newsletter. And as you see, the newsletter is cited, Cities Seeking Cities newsletter. And it begins, of course, with a little bit of information on what is Cities Seeking Cities. And most importantly, it will give you an idea of the support that City Cities International can provide for volunteers and other municipal officials who are looking to form a relationship with a potential match. And this newsletter comes out rather regularly, and it again talks very specifically about the Sister Cities Seeking Cities program, and it helps walk you through the process for how cities become a sister cities, and they have a very active website. Let's look at the next slide. This is the letter that I referred to in terms of the outreach that we made from Durham sister cities, at least to get some sense of whether the mayor in Antigua was interested in beginning a relationship with Durham, North Carolina. And as you will be able to see, the letter just really is sent. It was sent by our committee, the Sister Cities Committee, on behalf of the mayor of Durham, because remember, these are always mayoral outreaches to other mayors. We gave the mayor a little bit of information about Durham, told them a little bit about who we are, sent along some supportive information to give the mayor a little bit more information about Durham, and basically concluded the letter by telling him that we would like to reach out and we hope that we could proceed to something more formal. As I said before, this is still a work in progress. There's a lot of interest in Antigua, and as an aside, I should say to you that the most active group of citizens interested in establishing a relationship with Antigua are, one, some of our citizens who routinely travel to Guatemala, not necessarily Antigua, but have established relationships through other organizations that they are affiliated with, and therefore have a real love for Guatemala and would like to see that relationship take full form. And then there are quite a few people who are working on that committee who have actually adopted children from Guatemala, and they also have a very clear interest in wanting to see if we can develop a relationship. Let's move to the next slide. This gives you a little bit of idea about the kind of questions that we frame for our process of evaluating whether this would likely be a very viable relationship. If you remember from the first slide, the overall intention is that these not be short-term endeavors, but that they be long-term, and therefore the best way to ensure that they are long-term relationships is to explore in the beginning the connection between the two cities and to try to get some idea whether there are natural synergies that will make the relationship be as productive as possible. So we start by looking at the demographic features of both cities. What are the size? What are the notable geographic features that might make it compatible for the populations in these two cities to want to get to know each other and to do work? Needless to say, you cannot develop a sister city relationship if it's impossible for you to get to the sister city, or if you have to travel days on end to get there. Although I must admit, it's a little bit hard to get to China, but you don't prohibit it if it takes a little bit of time, but you're definitely looking to see if there are major access points. What are the airports that would support making a relationship easy for Durhamites to go to the sister city and for sister city citizens to travel to Durham? So you're looking at how easy it would be to travel for the participants. What are the potential benefits to both cities? This is not a let us in the United States help some poor country or some poor city do something. It should be mutually beneficial. There should be strengths that we have that we can share, as well as strengths on the sister city side abroad that can benefit Durham as well. Next one is to describe how the proposed sister city, not the next slide, the next part of the application is to discuss how the proposed sister city relationship will support the goals and objectives of sister cities of Durham. And I won't go into lots of detail about it, but as you can imagine, the overriding mission and objectives and goals of sister cities of Durham is to develop good citizen diplomacy between the two countries. Those can take form through a number of different avenues, and at the next part you see there are linkages that would be educational, cultural, religious, medical, or any other type of program that might have some connection between the two cities. And then we talk about who are the area residents on the Durham side who would be interested in participating in a formal sister city relationship. This, again, is the most important component on our side, because the Sister Cities Board does nothing to make these individual city relationships work. That has to come from the citizens who form the particular city relationship. So one of the first pieces that we look at, who have you already identified on the Durham side who have already committed to work to make this occur? And then the last part on this slide is, if you already have potential collaborators, both on the Durham side as well as collaborators abroad, that is a strength that you can add to your proposal, that as we review it as the new city committees, lets us know that you've got an apparatus either fully informed or almost informed that will certainly make this a viable exploration. Let's look at the next slide, Eve. What are the typical Sister Cities activities? I'm not going to go into a lot of discussion with this. Hopefully, from what I've said to you, you have a sense that the sky is the limit. All of the committees operate totally independent of each other, and the types of activities and exchanges that they have entered into with their partners city have been an outgrowth of where those two cities have decided to go. I've listed just a few. Facilitating student exchanges. We have a very active youth committee in Durham. So one of the ways in which we're really promoting our partnerships is we're trying to get more and more youth to go to visit short-term with our sister cities. We had a wonderful group go to China this summer. We've had groups go to Japan. As you look on here, you will see that we sent the Durham Children's Choir to Japan. We have had photo contests. We had a quilt project. Durham librarians went to Kostroma. The Arusha Committee supported the establishment of a micro business, which was a sewing enterprise in Arusha. We regularly have students come to Durham to take English classes at Durham Tech Community College. So we once again are reaching out to connect partnerships with our ongoing organizations in Durham. There's a wonderful mural, which I hope some of you will have seen. It's a 45-foot mural in the Raleigh-Durham Airport titled Friendly Folks. We did that in conjunction not just with the Durham sister cities, but with some of the other sister cities in the area. And I should tell you that there are active organizations in Raleigh, there are active organizations in Cary, and routinely we get together and do collaborative activities that help support each other. And the last thing I have on this particular slide is that Durham has hosted a variety of activities, including this Durham and the World Peace Festival. We regularly take part in the organizations that put on the festivals downtown. We always try to have a booth so that we let citizens of Durham be aware that we exist, and we always are outreaching to try to expand our membership so that those people who are not aware that there's any such thing as sister cities can come to know a little bit more about us and will hopefully join us and become very active. I think the next slide is really showing you a few of the pictures. This was a trip that took place in July, where Durham High School students went to TOYAMA, Japan. I've already told you about a group of students that went to China this summer. That actual group that went to China was facilitated by Sister Cities of Durham, but it was really underwritten by Representative Butterfield through the Congressional Black Caucus. So again, we're constantly looking at ways that we can partner with activities that are already ongoing. What's the next slide? This is an example of some of what we do. This is a program, a humanities program that we routinely do with the Durham Public Library. You can see from the slides that this was the waterways and mountains of Durham, sister cities, an absolutely wonderful program where once again we come to a public forum where we try to educate citizens who may not know about our work a little bit more about what we do. The last one that we did at the library, which was a humanities program, was looking at sports in our sister cities, an absolutely marvelous program where each of our sister cities was represented, and we talked within the context mainly of the Olympics, but just looked at what are the sports that are undertaken in each of our sister cities, and how can we look at that as also a way of bridging how we connect with them. The picture that's also accompanying this one is the award ceremony that we routinely do. We try not only to be a presence in the city, we try to also honor those who have worked in partnership with us and who have helped further the mission that we have of bringing these citizen diplomats in relationship. As you see, there's Mayor Bell. He is a very active and very prominent supporter of all that we do. He is officially the head of Sister Cities of Durham. Those of you who know some of your colleagues from Rotary, you can see BC Dash there. BC has been exceptional in helping us also bridge our relationship with Rotary. Brady Souls, as some of you may know, stepped down as president of Sister Cities. I took over his role, and I must tell you, his shoes are extremely big to fill, but he came on board as the executive director of Sister Cities, which was a new position that we put in place specifically because nobody was willing to step up to be president if Brady was going to go home and not be a player in our work anymore. But true to form, he has taken the helm as executive director, keeps us focused, keeps us right on point. And I can tell you, as the president of Sister Cities, I wouldn't be able to do a thing if it were not for Brady. In fact, I don't know if Brady's wife appreciates it, but I like to tell her that Brady is my work husband. He helps my life be very workable. And the next slide, Eve, is questions. And I am open to have any questions that I'm able to ask. And once again, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate Eve. The mural that I was speaking of is right there. That is the mural that you will see in the International Concourse at the Raleigh-Durham Airport if you are able to go see it. And it represents sister city relationships in the triangle area that will show some of the things that all of us are doing to make sister cities come alive in our city. That's it, and thank you so much for asking me to present.
Thank you so much, Gwen.